Welcome into a brand new episode of the Sports Hub Patriots Podcast. Getting ready to take a look at the Patriots' Week 6 matchup with the Houston Texans, and obviously the big story, Drake Maye's debut. So, I've written a lot. It's Alex Barth. I've written a lot on 98.5, thesportshub.com this week about what to expect from Drake Maye from a Patriots side of things. But what exactly is he stepping into against this Houston Texans team, this Houston Texans defense? Here to help us figure that out, Landry Locker. He hosts the Locker Room Stream Texans show on YouTube. Landry, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to the trip to Foxborough. Hadn't always been kind, but I think there's a little better vibe, a little more confidence heading in this time, I would say.
Well, I'll tell you this. If there was one game this year to come in where the Patriots are going to have some juice, it's this, because Drake Maye, the third overall pick, is making his first start for the Patriots. But there's been a lot of criticism from Patriots fans that this is the spot they're picking to debut him. Last week, they played a banged up Miami team. Next week, they've got a Jaguars team that's obviously been bad. The Jets, after that, having just fired their head coach. But it's this Texans defense that he's going to face first. What can you tell us about this unit and what makes them so tough?
And I would agree with that, all joking aside. The defense it's not going to be the same defense that they've had up to this point, because it looks like Kamari Lassiter, doubtful at the very least. That could change tomorrow. He's got a hurt shoulder. The Texans defense right now, they lead the league in pressure rate. And they're close to 45-50% when it comes to pressuring the quarterback. They're not getting as many sacks, but when it comes to pressure rate with Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson, they're really, really good at pressuring the quarterback. They've also kind of had a luxury of where it's kind of an adjustment. I don't think this is going to be the defense they run all the time, but they're essentially running. It's kind of a 4-2-5, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to do because they're only playing two linebackers right now, which is insane to think about. And Jalen Petrie, who was a safety last year, is essentially their third linebacker. And they've only had two corners really playing two, which I don't know how they're getting away with that, but they've had multiple games where Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter play 100% of the snaps. Now, if Lassiter can't go, they basically have a bunch of guys off the streets because Jeff Okudah's not ready. So that's kind of an opportunity for the Patriots. You have that. I still think Petrie's vulnerable in coverage. He's kind of been sniffed out by opposing offensive coordinators and putting him in those types of positions. And Jimmy Ward's not going to go. It doesn't look like either. So you're playing the three safeties with Petrie essentially playing linebacker. You're not going to have Ward. Lassiter kind of in doubt. So that's kind of the opportunity for the Patriots there to perhaps take advantage, specifically Drake Maye, who kind of has a little bit similar style to the quarterbacks they face. He can extend plays, and the guys who've been able to extend plays really have been able to avoid sacks most of the time when it comes to this, because they haven't really gotten as many sacks as the pressure rate would say. So I actually think it's not as bad of a situation as people are putting out there, just because you're not going to have a corner. You've been playing a unique style of defense where the corners are playing 100% of the time. So I don't think it's as bad as people are making it out to be. It actually seems kind of one of those wacky, weird games that you look at it, you say, well, they're only 7-point favorites. And then you look a little bit closer and you're like, okay, well, maybe they know something.
Well, along those lines, for the Patriots, if they're going to have an advantage offensively, it's been running the football. You mentioned the Texans maybe playing with a little bit lighter unit up front. Patriots might not have their starting running back in Ramondre Stevenson, which is its own issue. He hasn't practiced yet this week, but is this a defense that they can run on even if they don't have their top back?
That's one of the things they do really good, is stop the run. The Texans are really, really, really good at stopping the run. So that's a little bit difficult, easier said than done against this squad. They have kind of a culture where D'Amico Ryans calls it swarm, where they'll try to take away the running back, which leaves a lot of opportunity for quarterback. They've actually had a few games where quarterbacks have missed wide open touchdowns. There was a game against the Colts. There was a game against the Jags. And then Josh Allen missed one last week. He was actually 9 of 30.
Yeah.
And they held him in check. But James Cook early on was having his way. That was probably the most success we'd seen. But when you look at the box score afterwards, they kind of kept him in check. So running the ball has been, it's really early, but it has been really, really difficult for the Texans. It's something they really emphasize.
So if the Patriots have to drop back and throw quite a bit, you mentioned the edge rushers, who I think people are familiar with, but the interior is suddenly a problem for this Patriots offensive line. Nick Leverett made his first start at center last week, allowed 10 pressures. Now he's coming into this game banged up, and interior pressure can, throw off a young quarterback as much as anything. Is that somewhere where the Texans are a threat, or is it mostly coming off the edge?
See, they had Danico Autry, who they were excited about. He's going to be eligible after this week, so there's no Danico Autry on the interior. Mario Edwards Jr. is starting. He's playing a lot. He had 2 sacks in the first 2 games. He's kind of slowed down a little bit, kind of came back to down to what we've been used to seeing from Mario Edwards Jr. And then Foley Fatukasi, he's been good, but I don't think this is like some sort of interior D line that is just going to completely punish you. Most of the problems that the Texans possess, like in the trenches, at least on the D line, it's off of the edge, which they're really, really good at. But as far as the D linemen, I don't look at this as, unless it's just really, really bad in New England. I don't look at this as like a major issue. I actually think it's probably the interior D line that you would want to face if you did have a bad offensive line.
So I'm always just kind of interested, like how the Patriots are viewed in other markets, and just as you get ready for this game and as you cover this game, what's the view from the opponent of being the first team to face Drake Maye?
Yeah, like the Patriots as a whole, it's kind of it was a sensitive subject here because they had a coach who it felt like was trying to be Belichick, and then they brought in the pastor Easterby, God, the POS, I call him, person of service. Had some interesting interactions with that dude during his time here. But like now it's just, I'll be honest, it's kind of looked at as, hey, this is a game that you can't lose. It's one of those where you look at it early on the schedule, you say, now it was Minnesota was one of those teams early on too, and they're one of the best damn teams in the league. But we've kind of seen New England. It's looked at right now as, you can't lose to the Patriots. You shouldn't lose to the Patriots. You got Green Bay after that. You got Indianapolis. So that's just being completely honest. That's kind of the vibe. I know Caserio has some ties there, so I'm sure it's going to be interesting for him to go back there. He's got a lot of memories. I love Nick. I think Nick's a funny dude. But yeah, to be quite honest, it's looked at as, man, you can't lose this game. This is the game. Like the comparison that keeps getting brought up is Carolina last year, where they lost to Bryce Young, and it's like, you cannot lose. Bryce Young got his first win last year, and you sleptwalk through it. You can't do that to the Patriots. That's kind of how it's viewed. It was a hellacious experience for a long time, though. So I don't feel too sorry for you after the 2 decades y'all went through.
That's what everybody said when they come on the show. And I get it, and I wouldn't trade that for anything. So did the vibe around the game change at all? Even just like coverage wise, did it change at all when they announced they were going to Drake Maye, or is it just kind of been the same Drake Maye, Jacoby Brissett, whoever?
He's a Texans killer. Like Jacoby, remember Thursday night when the Texans took on Jacoby Brissett? I think it was his first start. They kicked their ass by 30 points or whatever. And like Jacoby's been like a Texans killer for a while. Like I think he had like a hell of a streak going there for a minute. So Jacoby kind of scares people, just even no matter what he is, even if it's kind of the ghost of Jacoby Brissett. But yeah, CJ's been real complimentary of Drake Maye. I asked CJ at practice, what he liked about Drake Maye. He had some good things to say about him. But for sure, yeah, it's definitely more intriguing. I think there is kind of a sense where people are like, a rookie quarterback against this defense, but I don't know if that's a bad thing. I think just Drake Maye going in there and trying to figure some stuff out against the Texan squad, especially given what we just laid out on the defense. I don't think it's the worst situation for him. Like I saw yesterday, I saw like the national media types, they were laying out, like, you would think that he's throwing like Drake Maye, Gerard Mayo's throwing him like against the 85 Bears or something like that. It's like, that's not what this is. I mean, it's been a good defense, but it's not, I don't look at this as like incompetence putting him out there. I don't see it that way.
It's funny you mentioned Jacoby as a Patriots killer, because you guys, this is one of my big notes, or as a Texans killer,
yeah.
Because you guys have a Patriots killer now in Stefon Diggs, and this guy put the Patriots through the blender when he was in Buffalo. There, some massive games, and obviously CJ Stroud's going to be without his top target and Nico Collins this week. What have you seen from Diggs in his first kind of month in Houston, and does he become the focal point of the passing game now without Collins?
Yeah, Diggs has been on his best behavior. Look, I've talked to people that he played with, like in Minnesota and Buffalo. I had Cole Beasley on the stream, and Brian Robinson, who played with him back then. They both speak very highly of him. What happened in Buffalo happened in Buffalo. He's been kind of a leader of this squad. He was the best receiver in camp. And I think a lot of that had to do with CJ trying to like create a dynamic with him, maybe. But he was by far the best receiver in camp. Now, obviously, Nico Collins has been arguably the best receiver in the league early on, but he was the best in camp, and he's been a good leader of the locker room, kind of like rallying the troops, next man up type of thing. So he's been solid. The question is, what does Tank Dell look like? I think Diggs is going to be productive. What does Tank Dell look like? He's been a distant three so far, and he got hurt last year. He had the rib injury earlier this year. A lot of people feel like the offensive coordinators kind of resorted to using him kind of as a gadget guy. CJ Stroud insists he's one of the best receivers in the league. He says it's one of it's his brother, it's one of his good friends. So I think Tank Dell is really the X factor. I think Diggs is going to be ready to go. He might not be prime Buffalo like y'all remember, but he's still a hell of a player. He's got a few touchdowns, and his production's been pretty solid. But I think Tank Dell would be the one. Like if there's going to be an X factor in this game and a guy that's going to blow the top off, I think we need to see a little bit more productive Tank Dell from this side of things.
So guys like Xavier Hutchinson or even John Mechie, these are some names that have been brought up here. It seems like it's going to be Dell who has the bigger role.
Yeah, Dell will have the bigger role, and then it's a question of number three. Hutchinson's been good. Hutchinson's kind of a guy that he'll give you 19, 20 yards on one play, and you'll look and he has like one catch for 20 yards. He's gotten a lot better. Like he's kind of a developmental guy. He's improved. They like him on special teams. He's capable. Mechie and Hutchinson were kind of going toe to toe in camp, and both of them ended up making the roster because they got rid of Noah Brown. Robert Woods, I don't know that he's going to play. He's got a hurt foot, so that might be something to keep an eye on. They like using Woods, but we've only seen one catch from Mechie. The receivers not named Tank Dell, Stefon Diggs, and Nico Collins. I think they have a combined. It's under 20 catches. It's really low. Mechie has one. So I don't know that either one of those guys are going to make an impact. I'd keep more of an eye on Dalton Schultz. I think that we could see Dalton Schultz being used a little bit more. He had some big third down catches the other day. If they feel comfortable enough leaving a tight end to block, which could be Cade Stover, the rookie out of Ohio State, or Tegan Quintariano. They just brought him back from the Chicago's practice squad. He was here for a couple of years. Nobody knows who the hell that is, but he can block.
I think he was here on the practice squad for a minute, actually.
Maybe, who knows? I know he left. I know he left here after camp. He can't stay healthy, so he scored a touchdown in the first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game, and then was getting carted off like a little bit later. So I say all that to say that if they feel comfortable, and the tackles are both at practice today, they were there, Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. I could see Schultz actually being that third guy when it comes to receiving option, as opposed to Mechie and Hutchinson. But we've never seen them get this opportunity, so who knows?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Schultz because the Patriots have had trouble covering tight ends this year, and they're going to be without Jabril Peppers. Kyle Duggar's been banged up. He returned to practice today for the first time in 2 weeks. And then Marte Mapu just doesn't have a ton of experience. He's kind of been that next man up at safety. So it's been an issue for them covering tight ends, and now they're shorthanded there against a team that it seems like he seems like a guy they target. His target share just looks to be low through the first 5 games. Has that been the case? And why do you think that is?
Yeah. Well, he was banged up. I think he was very, very hurt for like the first 3 weeks of the season, and he was just kind of gutting it out. But then they lost Brevin Jordan, and I think a lot of stuff that they asked Brevin Jordan to do, who was the number 2 tight end, kind of a guy who had like a running back background that they could use a lot. I think he was kind of having to, he's probably lead blocking a little bit more than he liked and doing stuff that Brevin Jordan liked to do. The tight ends have 20 combined catches. Schultz has 14. Stover has 4, and then Brevin Jordan had 2 before he got hurt. So the tight ends haven't been asked to do a lot on this offense. They really haven't had to. So, like, if you're vulnerable to the tight ends, I don't know that Dalton Schultz is just going to completely. He's not a very explosive guy or anything. I don't think you're going to have trouble containing these tight ends. I think it's as simple as Dalton Schultz catches a 6-yard pass on 3rd and 4 or something and moves the chains a little bit. Although CJ does like him, and we haven't seen it without the big three. But I wouldn't be too scared of these tight ends when it comes to like completely beating you.
There's just an element of Texans tight ends that I think always sticks with the Patriots. And is that, you remember in 2020, they went down, I think it was Jordan Akins, right? That just lit them up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And ever since then, every time the Patriots play the Texans, I feel like I always get a bunch of questions like, who's going to be the Texans tight end? Like that's a thing now, I guess, that there's a Texans tight end that's just going to light the Patriots up. But
it would
Dalton
be Schultz. It would be Schultz.
And he obviously has a little bit more of a pedigree. No disrespect to Jordan Akins, but this is a guy that's one of the better tight ends in the league. What's going on with Texans run game? Because I know there's been a lot of guys in and out of the lineup. I saw Joe Mixon did return to practice today, but do they have? He's gonna play. You think?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm positive. We actually got to talk to him today. They're not going to let him talk if he's not going to go. So okay. Yeah, I think it's pretty sure Mixon's going to go. Be shocked if he didn't. But who knows? He's still playing that, we might wait a week or whatever, but he's been foaming at the mouth. Actually called out the NFL for the hip drop tackle and finding running backs for lowering their head and stuff. So he kind of wanted to send a little bit of a message there. They're Mixon dependent, man. Like their running game is Mixon dependent. And I asked Bobby Slowick last week, because they kept saying they were close. And it'd been 3 weeks. I said, how long till we stop saying they're close? Like, are you still close? And he essentially admitted that they're Mixon dependent when it comes to the run game. Now, we haven't seen Dameon Pierce. He's only gotten a few carries. He was unplayable last year, and they still brought him back this year. They said he was going through some personal stuff and kind of having trouble figuring out the playbook. Cam Akers has had flashes every once in a while. And then Dare Ogunbowale, they overused him last week. I don't know what that was. He had 15 carries for 30 yards, but he's been really valuable as a receiver out of the backfield. Just basically, they're just throwing stuff against the wall without Mixon. I think they're very Mixon dependent. Does that mean that the run game is going to be elite when Mixon's in? I don't know. He's played one full game. It was a 150-yard performance against the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the very next week, Josh Jacobs played against the Indianapolis Colts. He had 150 yards. So it's not to say that there's a guaranteed really, really elite run game when Mixon comes back. But I think at this point, their only hope at having a good run game is with Mixon.
So we'll wrap it up here, and I kind of like to end all the shows this way. If the Patriots do upset the Texans, right, and if they are able to win it, what is the biggest talking point coming out of that game? What did the Patriots do right, or what did the Texans do wrong that would most allow that to happen?
Let's say the Patriots exposed Jalen Petrie in coverage and didn't allow the Texans to basically put a safety at linebacker. And I would say that the absence of Kamari Lassiter was very, very well felt. And they were able to pick on whichever corner the Texans decide to sit out there. I think those two matchups, exposing Jalen Petrie in coverage and taking advantage of whatever corner fills in for Kamari Lassiter, I think that would be the thing that we would be talking about if the Texans were to lose this game and the Patriots were to win it.
And what's your expectation for what this looks like? And what are you kind of expecting from Drake Maye against this defense?
I think Drake's going to probably have some plays that are like, oh my God. And then he's going to have some plays like, oh God. Like, I think that Drake Maye is going to have some flashes, but I think he's probably going to run into some sacks with Anderson and Hunter. I think he's probably going to give them some opportunities to turn the rock over. But I don't think he's going to look completely lost. I don't think he's being thrown to the wolves. I don't think this is like some sort of crazy decision that Jerod Mayo made. I actually think when you factor in how the Texans have been playing defense and how they've been able to get away with playing defense, I don't think it's the worst thing to put Drake Maye out there. But I do think there's going to be a boost with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon seems to be like the juice of this squad. So I do think that with Joe Mixon, if assuming that he does play, and I think it's a healthy assumption,
yeah,
I think that he should give Texans fans confidence that they're going to win the game.
He is Landry Locker, host of the Locker Room on YouTube. If you want to check out more, I think there will be some Patriots fans that are curious because, again, people around here totally panicked about Drake Maye specifically starting against the Texans. So hearing somebody who covers the Texans say it's not the worst thing in the world, that's going to get some antennas up here in New England.
Look, it's a character builder. Like, it's fine. They're not the 85 Bears. They're really good on the edge. They have really good corners. One of those corners is questionable. They've been playing 100% of the snaps. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, man. Like, they're playing. You look in the box score. Jalen Petre's playing like 100% of snaps. He's basically a linebacker, and then 2 corners are only playing, and that was not sustainable. And now they don't have 2 corners playing. So Drake will be, I mean, will he struggle? Perhaps, but it's not the end of the world. It's not like malpractice by Gerard Mayo. It's gonna be all right. You'll be okay.
Well, Landry, thanks for joining us today, and enjoy the game on Sunday.
I appreciate you, man.